agrees, can we start now?
Sure, sure.
Thank you. Dheeraj, please.
Very good morning to each and every participant and our very respected invited guest. Well, at the very onset, I would like to invite each and every one of our students into this third day of orientation for the undergraduate students organized by the Royal Global University. Well, it has indeed been a pleasure to have each and every student with us. We have had a huge number of participation, so also we have already more than around 500 participants who have joined today. Well, today we have three very important speakers who will be talking to us. And the very first session would be about something that has been in discussion, that is the new education policy, which has been launched by the Government of India. My dear students, it is very important that you know about the new education policy that has been passed by the Government of India and which is going to play a very important role in the near future. Well, we today have amongst us a very reputed guest who is a well-known academician, Dr. Mrs. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities, New Delhi. And she is the second Secretary General of the association in its 95 years of existence. And prior to joining the All India University, she was serving the higher education sector, especially the university education, for more than 3 decades. Ma'am is a Fulbright scholar and has been the topper at her university exams and has a brilliant academic career. She was also the Vice Chancellor of Bhagat Phool Singh Mahila Vishwavidyalaya, Kanpur, the first rural women university of North India in 2008. Well, she has been the recipient of many awards. She has been the recipient of Fulbright Nehru Scholarship Grant for Educational Administrators. She has been awarded the President of India Award in 2017 for digital initiatives in higher education. She has already been awarded as an honorary doctorate from Karnataka State Women's University. She is the first Padam Shri Subhashini Devi Award 18 for contributions in societal development and community engagement. Well, ma'am, it is indeed a pleasure for us to have you amongst us today, and we hope that our students would also benefit from you. Now, may I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor S.P. Singh, to give his introductory remark as well as formally welcoming you, ma'am. Sir, good morning, and we welcome you to the session, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Dheeraj, and good morning, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, all eminent professors of Royal Global University, and all dear students who have joined so far. And many of you others will be joining soon, I suppose, because we have almost 1,000 admissions in the undergraduate program, and we expect around 800 or 900 people to join in today. Some of the students I heard may be facing some connectivity issues. So, but then I'm very sure they all are digitally sound, and this is a digital world now. And we have started orientation program digitally, so everyone will gradually become conversant with this and join us. And we are also fortunate that this digital time, this Corona time, though the tough time for all of us, but we are fortunate, I would say, that today in the morning, as I always start with a positive note, that Dr. Pankaj Mittal is with us today in this webinar only because it is on the digital platform. So this is, all whatever negatives come around you, the world is facing, India is facing, Assam state, and everybody, and students, especially you, are facing a tough time when this last 6-7 months you are stranded at home. But then there are a lot of positives outcome of all these, this time. And I think we are very fortunate that from last 2 days of orientation, we got very, very eminent people to join in us today, yesterday and day before yesterday. Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, Professor Ved Prakash, Professor Kushwaha, then Sanjukta Parashar, and today we are blessed by Dr. Pankaj Mittal. So, Madam, welcome you to the virtual platform of Royal Global University. You visited our campus last year, and I think we were very, very happy to see you here, and the vibes and vibrancy you carry with you that always motivates anybody and everybody who comes across and meet you. That may be teachers, that may be vice chancellors, that may be students. We all are blessed, and I'm formally welcoming you on this occasion. As far as the very imminent topic is concerned, I will not like to throw anything light on that, but then from very, very long time, almost 3-4 months, or for almost 7-8 months, we are discussing about new national education policy, and we are very, very optimistic. We have seen a major change in this policy, which probably will become not only India-centric, but will bring old name and fame for the nation, India, and that what we had once upon a time, we may become, as been said in the policy as well as in our mind, that we may become Vishwa Guru in due course of time if the right kind of policy been implemented by right kind of people in bureaucracy, in AIU, in UGC, and other new bodies which are going to be formed, and all vice chancellors, teachers, and students together. So students, you have a major role to play in this policy. A lot many good things are there. As far as Association of Indian Universities is concerned, Professor Pankaj Mittal, probably if Dheeraj, I may correct you, she is the second woman Secretary General of AIU, because AIU is almost 100 years old institution. Probably it has been established, if I'm not wrong, in 1925. And but then from then, and it is a very, very important organization. I would say that your degree in the foreign country and the other places been recognized unless and until it has not been accredited by AIU. AIU's listing, if at all Royal Global University is not there, if you do your graduation or post-graduation from here and you want to join any other university in the world, you will not be getting the chance to do so unless and until we are there. So we are member of AIU, and also many universities are member of AIU from a long time, and vice versa. If any foreign university graduate degree is to be recognized in India, it is only AIU that decides. And not only this role, they have so much of role with respect to academics, enhancement, policy making, implementation. So it's a big organization, and Dr. Pankaj Mittal, you are on the helm of affairs, doing your job very well, and I see almost every day you on the digital platform, and that is also a good thing you are doing for the nation, for the students, for all of us. So I will not take much time on the topic, but I will just conclude by saying one couplet, because it is something wings to the, the topic is giving wings to the student, if I'm not wrong, giving wings to the student. So wings means everybody know in Hindi or Urdu is called pank or par. So मैं pank kabhi, at times in a wrong sense we say par nikal aaye hai, means you are going in the wrong direction. Par is wrong, but pank is good. See the beauty of our culture, beauty of our languages. So the पंख के लिए है मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं. मैं लखनऊ का हूँ. I cannot stop saying बस मैं मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं जिनके सपनों में जान होती है. पंखों से कुछ नहीं होता, हौसलों से उड़ान होती है. So I would request Dr. Mittal to talk about wings to the student, but also give them motivation and hausla, because this is their 3rd day of orientation. If they will have courage and hausla, I think they can do anything in life, and they become the most successful people, more successful than both of us in due course of time in their life. My best wishes to all of you and for this webinar. Dr. Mittal, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. May I now request Dr. Mittal to take over the session and educate our students with her insights on the new education policy. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dheeraj. Thanks for a very, very gracious introduction and a very, very long introduction. Thanks for that. And thanks to Professor S.P. Singh, not only for setting the tone of this lecture, but also for holding this orientation program for the students. Because this orientation program, this type of orientation program, not many universities are holding, and the type of speakers you are inviting here, the students here will not only get a chance to know about the university, but also about the whole higher education system, because we do need a holistic development of our students. So they should not only be knowing about the course or the program they are studying, but they should also be knowing about, in general, the higher education system of the country. And this orientation program will be a very, very nice way of telling them that how our higher education system works, because many a times when we talk to Many students, not only students, even the teachers, many of them, they don't know about the higher education system. If you ask them how many universities are there in the country, how many colleges are there in the country, how many students are there, or how many teachers are there, nobody knows anything, because they are not working in this area. They are not even thinking about this. So it is very good that you have organized this orientation program, and the students will be know of things like what is happening in the higher education space. And I also personally feel that they will understand and they will listen to these type of lectures only if they are spoken in a very, very interesting manner. If I talk the philosophy, I mean, if I speak on, keep on talking about the philosophy of national education policy or the higher education scenario of India, maybe nobody would like to have it. So therefore I will try to make my talk very, very simple. But like you were telling a couplet in Hindi, I would again want to ask you, you want my lecture in Hindi or English? Because if your students are the ones who can understand Hindi, I prefer speaking in Hindi, because when you speak Hindi, it is heart to heart talk. And if there are students who cannot understand Hindi, then I prefer continuing in English. So the choice is yours. You tell me, Dr. S.P. Singh, which language should I speak?
We have a student from Northeast India, from all Arunachal, Meghalaya. So my request is that if you can speak in English, but they understand Hindi, you can add in between Hindi also. But my request for the English.
Okay, okay.
So
Thank you,
many
Professor.
of them from Nagaland and other places, they are still not very conversant with the Hindi.
With Hindi. Okay, no issues. So I'll speak in English. So first of all, children, welcome to Royal Global University. It's a very good university. I have visited this university last year. Excellent infrastructure, excellent teachers, and excellent vice chancellor. He really takes pains to take care of the students. He sees to it personally that no one is in, I mean, any type of issue. So he tries to resolve it at the earliest. So you are in good hands, that I can assure you. And now coming to the topic of the today's orientation program, I was wanting to speak to you about the national education policy, but before I speak, and entire national education policy again may be boring for you. Therefore, I will only talk about the issues which are more relating to the students. That why am I saying that this policy is giving wings to the students? Why it is so student-centric policy? What is there in the policy for the students? And what type of higher education scenario you will be seeing in future. Till now there was a different type of scenario, but after this policy there will be a totally different world, which we call VUCA world. So VUCA world has to be VUCA also, I'll explain a bit late, but that is being taken care of by this policy. But first you should know about the higher education system of the country, that how higher education system operates in India. You know that it is 10 plus 2 plus 3 means 3 for graduation or 4 for engineering. So 10 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2 type of system. That means 10 plus 2 is the schooling, 3 years of graduation and 2 years of post graduation. Now this right now is a scheme which is being followed all over the country, and there is not much variation. If a university wants to do some innovation, that type of innovation possibility is very less. Mostly everybody is doing 3-year program. If all of a sudden, if I want to do a 4-year program, I am not allowed. If I want to do different subject combinations, I am not allowed. If a student wants to learn, say, music or dance with physics, he is not allowed, because the student has to do with physics only chemistry, mathematics, or biology, all science related subjects. So this is right now the higher education system in the country is a bit compartmentalized, in which there are, I can say, different baskets of subjects. And if you want to choose a subject, then you have to choose from the small basket only. The big basket in which you can choose anything is not there. And also higher education, you should know the size of the higher education system. You should be knowing the issues confronting higher education system of the country. So first, about the size, right now we have something like 1,000 universities in the country, and the universities are of different types. There are central universities which are made by an act of parliament. There are state universities which are made by an act of state legislation. There are deemed to be universities which do not have an act. I mean, there are universities which do not have an act. Deemed universities are by an executive notification of the Government of India, and means Ministry of Education now, based on the recommendation of UGC. So these 3 main types of institutions are there, and then there is institutions of national importance, which are again by an act of parliament. So one thing as a student which you must understand is that in our country, the degree can be awarded by a university only. That is a central university, state university, deemed university, or institution of national importance. If any other college or any other institution which is not a university claims that I will give you a degree, please don't go to them. That will be a fake degree. So universities can only award a degree. So that you should understand, because we have seen many cases in which the students come to us and then they say that I got admission in this college and they gave me a degree which is not valid. Obviously, it will not be valid. So that you should understand. So we have 1,000 universities and we have 40,000 colleges in our country right now. And these 40,000 colleges, although the students are studying there, but these colleges cannot award degree. For degree, they have to be affiliated to a university. And again, these 40,000 colleges are affiliated to these 1,000 universities. So whatever college you study in, the degree will be given by the affiliating university. So this is the university and the colleges, and this affiliating structure is existing in very few countries. I mean, this came here because of Britishers. Britishers brought this affiliation system to India. Britishers went back. They abolished affiliation system in their own country, but it is still continuing in India. So this is about the structure. I mean, universities and colleges and their relationships. There are right now about 3.7 crore students in our higher education system. So when I say higher education, what is higher education? Anything post 12th class. So after 12th, whatever education is there, that comes under higher education. And right now, 3.7 crore students are there in higher education, and about 15 lakh teachers are there who are teaching these 3.7 crore students. Now, there is a term called gross enrollment ratio. Gross enrollment ratio is the in the relevant age group, means the age group in which the students go for higher education, that is 18 to 23. In that age group, only about 28% people, I mean, out of 100, only 28 are going for higher education. So you can see how lucky you are that in your age group, out of 100 people, only 28 are going for higher education. So you are amongst those 28. So you should understand that you are very lucky to be a part of a university. Not everybody is getting a chance to be a part of the university. Something like 72% people are not getting chance to be a part of the university in your relevant age group. I'm not talking about the entire population. I'm only talking about the age group between 18 to 23. So that also you should understand, that how many students are there, how many teachers are there, and how lucky you are, and how lucky you are to be in Royal Global University. Having said that, then who right now monitors the higher education system of the country? Now, every country has a different set of people who monitor the higher education system. In India, there is one University Grants Commission, UGC. My parent office is UGC. I have been in UGC for about 30 years. So UGC is a body which has the mandate of the Government of India. It is again made by an Act of Parliament for coordination and maintenance of standards in higher education. It also is doing the funding of higher education. So this basically does two functions. What is coordination and maintenance of standards of higher education? How does it do that? It issues regulations like what should be the minimum qualification of teachers for appointment, what should be the minimum standards of instruction, what should be the grievance redressal mechanism, what should be the curriculum, what should be the teaching pedagogy. Like this, they keep on issuing regulations which are mandatory for the universities to follow. And this is how it sort of maintains the standard of higher education. Second thing it does is funding. So there is one UGC. And then apart from that, there are 17 statutory professional councils. What are those statutory professional councils? Like there are many professional subjects. Now, what is a professional subject? That is also a question, because many people ask what is a professional subject. Professional subject is a subject in which if you study that subject, you can immediately get a job. I mean, you are expected to get a job immediately. For example, engineering, technology, management, education, nursing, all these are professional subjects. So for these professional subjects, it was felt that one UGC may not be able to sort of maintain the standards in all the professional subjects. Therefore, 17 statutory professional councils were made. 17 statutory professional councils were like AICT for engineering education, medical council for medical education, nursing council for nursing education, bar council for law, Council of Architects for architecture, Pharmacy Council for pharmacy, ICAR for agriculture education. So for different spheres of professional education, 17 statutory professional councils were made. So this is right now the structure of higher education in the country which is prevailing right now. Now every country has a national education policy. Similarly, India had a national education policy. Beginning also it was having, first policy came in 1968. Second policy came in 1986. In between 2020, we have got the third national education policy. Now, third national education policy is what we are discussing today, that how it is making the difference in the lives of the students, how the students are changing because of this new education policy. Now, first and foremost is that till now we were calling, say, I don't know about if you understand about the Ministry of Human Resource Development and Ministry of Education. The first thing policy said that Ministry of Human Resource Development should be renamed as Ministry of Education, because human is not a resource. Resource should be something, non-living are resource. The human is not a resource. So human resource development was made the Ministry of Education. So today we call it Ministry of Education. There was a gazette notification, a presidential assent was taken to change the name of the ministry. So that presidential assent from the President of India was taken, and now it is called the Ministry of Education, MOE, instead of MHRD. One second thing at the broad level which the policy said was, see, in most of the countries, a lot of money is spent on higher education and on education. But in our country, the spending on education is not as much as is being recommended for a long time. Like since the first policy, the thinking is that something like 6% of the GDP should be spent on education. We have been trying a lot, but still around 3.54% is spent on education. So the policy again reiterates that 6% of the GDP should be spent on education, and I hope this time this promise will be fulfilled. I am keeping my fingers crossed that this promise should be fulfilled. But now the scenario is also different, because now there are many private universities, so they are contributing a lot in the field of education. Earlier, private education was much less than the government education. Now, what is there for the students in this policy? That was the main topic which I wanted to discuss with you, because you should know what holds for you in future. So the policy, if I say per se, is meant only for the students. It is a forward-looking, innovative, democratic, student-centric policy. When I say democratic because when it was made, a consultation was taken with more than 2 lakh people, so that the policy can be a holistic policy. But more so, it is a student-centric policy. In this policy, student is treated like a king. Student is a king in this policy, because the student is getting the freedom of speech. So after say you already have freedom of speech, but you also have the freedom of choosing a university. You have the freedom of choosing a subject, you have the freedom of choosing a discipline, and then you have the freedom of speed, the speed with which you want to work. So all these freedoms are there in this policy. How? I will tell you one by one. Now, first freedom is freedom of choosing a subject. Right now, if you are doing a particular program, say physics honors or political science honors, the subsidiary subjects which you can take, or the subjects which you want, which you can study along with subjects, is fixed. I mean, with physics, you will study chemistry or mathematics or some allied subject. With biology or life sciences, you will study botany, zoology, like this. Political science, you will study economics, sociology, like this. But now the policy says, if you study physics and if you have interest in music, why should you be allowed to study the music? If you have interest in, say, painting or in economics or in political science, so what, I mean, who has decided that the person who likes physics cannot like political science, or cannot like music, or cannot like economics? So the policy says that any student can study anything of his or her choice. So that complete freedom is given to the student, that they can study anything. So in future, the universities will not be single faculty universities. Like right now you have law university, engineering university, or medical university, or agricultural university. So in future, all the universities will be multi-faculty universities, so that a student of a particular faculty wants to study some other subject of some other faculty, he can study it, and there should be provision in the university that the student can study any subject. That subject is being studied by some other students of some other discipline, but you as a student of another faculty can also study that subject. So a complete freedom of choice of the subject is given to the students. Similarly, today, suppose you join a BSc program and you leave it in between because of any reasons. Girls could get married, There could be some financial problem. There could be some medical problem. There could be some family problem, any problem. So if you leave, say, BSc or BA or MA in between, you do not get any certification. Means after first year, if you leave, and if you want to come back again after 5 years, what will you do? Again, get admission to first year. Even if you leave after second year, again get admission in the first year. So that entry exit is totally restricted. Entry in the beginning of the program and exit at the end of the program. But now it is not so. Now what will happen is that suppose for any reason you have to leave after first year, you will get a certificate. If you leave after second year, you will get a diploma. After third year, you get a degree, or if you are having a 4-year degree program, you will get a degree after 4 years. So how does this help? It helps in two ways. One, suppose after first year, you're not wanting to study, you want to do some profession, you want to take up some job, you have a certificate in your hand to prove that yes, I have this qualification with me. I have this type of a certificate or this type of a diploma after second year with me. So you can straight away go to the job market. Second, if you want to come back to the studies after say 5 years, 10 years, then straight away you get, if you hold a certificate, admission in the second year. If you hold a diploma, you straight away get admission in third year. So 1 year and 2 years which you have studied already, that will not go waste. That will be counted anytime you want to resume your studies. So this is known as multiple entry and multiple exit. So if you can resume your studies from there only, that too, not only from the same university, from any university in the country. So that is the beauty of it, that you are so mobile that whenever I was talking about the freedom of speech, you have the total freedom when you want to study, when you want to leave, when you want to come back again, when you want to do job, total freedom is there with the student. So this is multiple entry exit after having a freedom of how many subjects or which subject you want to do. Similarly, there is a freedom of credit transfer. Credit transfer, when I say, before that I'll come to ABC. There is a very, very innovative provision in the policy that talks about ABC. Now ABC, what is ABC? Academic Bank of Credit. What is Academic Bank of Credit? Like you have your accounts in the commercial bank where you deposit the money. In ABC, Academic Bank of Credit, you will be depositing the credits. Now, how will you get the credits? This is a very, and before that, I should also tell you what is the definition of a credit, because many students who have come from the school background, they may not be knowing what is the meaning of a credit. Now, credit is like if you're doing a program, any course, paper, in common parlance in India, we say paper. So one paper, say BSc Physics Honors, you're doing quantum physics as a paper, suppose. Then quantum physics, the teacher will see what is the curriculum, how much studies are required in that paper. Based on that, how much of time is required in studying that particular paper, and the credits will be decided. So if in a particular course or in a particular paper, you have to put in, say, 1 hour of lecture per week. So 1 hour of lecture per week for the full semester will make it 1 credit. So, and in India, again, a semester is around 15 weeks. The duration of the semester is 15 weeks. So 1 hour per week will mean 15 hours. So if a course requires 15 hours of study, that will be a 1 credit course. If a course requires 30 hours of study, that will be a 2 credit course. If a course requires 45 hours of study, that will be a 3 credit course, or maybe 60 hours of course for the 4 credit course. So every course has a credit depending upon how vast the subject is, how many hours of study is required, how much depth is there. So that decides the number of credits of a course. So every course or every paper within a program, now understand the difference between program and a course. Program is the full program, like BSc is a full program. Not different papers. If you have 16 papers in BSc, those 16 papers are 16 courses. So 16 courses, whatever these courses you choose from, say, right now they will be, say, if you're doing BSc Physics Honors, there will be some core credits or core number of courses which you must do in physics, but rest of them you can do from anywhere. So every paper or every course will have a fixed number of credits. So right now, you get admission, say, in the full program, BSc program. And if there are 16 papers in BSc BSc, you have to do all 16 papers from, say, Royal Global University. But in future, if you feel, just a second, what happened? Sorry. So just a second. Right now, you take admission in, say, BSc program in Royal Global University. So all 16 papers you have to do from Royal Global University. But suppose you feel that only 5 courses I want to do from Royal Global, 3 from I want to do from JNU, 2 I do want to do from Delhi University, and maybe 2 from Tejpur University. Do you think that is possible? I mean, right now it looks like a dream. How is it possible for a BSc program which I am doing from one university? How can I do different papers from different universities? But with this policy, it is possible. That is why I was saying that this is giving wings to the students. So when I was talking about ABC, that is Academic Bank of Credit. So now what you will be able to do is that in addition to a program, I mean, you want to take admission in BSc in a particular university, you take. But if you don't want to take admission in a particular program, but you want to take admission in different courses in different universities. Suppose you like a course from, say, Hyderabad University, it's a very good course. You take admission in that. Another course you like in JNU, another course you like in Delhi University. So all those courses you keep on doing, and after you complete a course, you will get a certificate from the university that you have done this course from this university with these many credits and this grade. So with that certificate, you go to ABC, that is Academic Bank of Credit, where you are having a credit account. In commercial banks, we are having a sort of money account. Here you will be having a credit account. You go to that ABC and say that these many credits I have completed from these universities, and these are my grades. And the bank will keep on accumulating your credits. So you keep on accumulating your credits, 50, 100, 200, 300, whatever number of credits you want, you can keep on accumulating in your bank. Now, what to do with these credits? One is that if you go for any job, in future, maybe jobs and degrees are de-linked. There's no need of a degree for any job. There may be, they'll say that how many courses you have done, what is your knowledge base, how much you know, how, because they want work from you. So if you really have the domain knowledge of all those areas, maybe you will get a job without degree also. But even if you want a degree, and without taking admission in a particular university, these credits which you have, say 300 credits, suppose you have, and for a graduation degree, generally around 120 credits are required. So from the university from which you did the maximum number of credits, and if you have the required minimum number of credits in the core discipline, you go to that university, say that I have 120 credits. Out of these many are from your university, and these many are in the core subject, which sort of suffices your requirement. So that university, in lieu of those 120 credits, will give you a degree. So what does this mean? That you are redeeming the credits for a degree. So without taking the admission, you can get a degree from a university after doing courses from the multiple universities. So this is something very unique which is happening in this particular policy, that you are doing courses from different universities, you are accumulating the credits, you are the account holder of that credit, you are the account holder of those credits. So you can go to the university that these many credits are there, so you redeem these credits for a degree. And once those credits are redeemed, they will be deducted from your credit bank. See, in the beginning you were having 300 credits. So if you go to a university and redeem these 120 credits for a degree, so your bank will be left with 180 credits, not 300, because the way you take out money from the bank, and the money bank, I mean that much of money is deducted from your account. Same way, you have used these credits for a degree, so those many credits will be reduced from your account, and 180 will be there, and then you can redeem it for a second degree. Suppose there is, for example, master's degree, around 80 credits are required. So if you have done credits of that level, you can redeem it for a master's degree also. Or maybe you can keep on continuing more credits. Now these credits will also have a shelf life. When I say shelf life, it means that suppose you did a credit today. So after 10 years, that credit may not be redeemable as a degree. But I mean, it will of course lie in your credit bank. It will be lying in your credit account, like whatever degree you do, it is always with you. Similarly, if you earn some credits from a university, it will lie in your account forever. But if you want to redeem it for a degree, it should be within the shelf life. And the shelf life will be how it will be decided. For the courses which are of general nature, like suppose say history, literature, languages, the shelf life will be larger, longer, that may be 10 years or so. But for the credits, courses in which the advancement of knowledge is very, very fast, for example, robotics, AI, Internet of Things, data sciences, big data analysis, augmented reality, virtual reality, in all those subjects, the shelf life will be less because the advancements are too many. So after the shelf life is over, you cannot redeem the credit for a degree, but within the shelf life, you can redeem the credits, but of course the credit will lie in your bank forever. So now you see how much of opportunity you are getting because of this ABC. That is freedom of choosing multiple universities. You can study from multiple universities. You can study from any type of course you can do anytime. I mean, sometimes I see people, physics people, I mean, and you will be surprised, many scientists, they are very good in, say, instrumental music. So if you want to learn instrumental music, there is no issues at all. You can learn it from anywhere. And then the second beauty is these credits can be done face to face in a university. These credits can be done from a foreign university. These credits can be done in an online mode. So even online credits can be accumulated in the ABC. So this type of freedom I have never heard of. I mean, we as a student were always wanting to have this type of freedom, but we were not lucky enough. You are lucky enough. So now that you are lucky enough, please use this opportunity. This is something very, very good. I'll again tell you an anecdote which was told to me by one of the edX. You know, I don't know how many of you know what is edX. edX is a MOOCs platform, like we have Swayam. Swayam is an India MOOCs platform in which MOOCs courses are there. Similarly, edX is a MOOCs platform which is through Harvard University. Then through Stanford is this Coursera. So like this, there are many MOOCs platforms. This Harvard CEO, incidentally, is Anant Agarwal, who is an Indian. So he was telling us once in a conference in IIM Bangalore that once he was standing on an airport and suddenly one boy came running and he touched his feet. So he asked him, "Why are you touching my feet, bete?" He says, "Sir, because of you, I got my job." He says, "How can you get job because of me? I hardly know you. How you can get job from me because of me?" He says, "Sir, I did 10 courses from edX. Then I went to Tech Mahindra for a job interview. There were some graduates of IITs, NITs, and I was the one who had done graduation from the ordinary university. But then I had done these 10 courses from edX, and my performance in the interview was better than rest of them. And I was selected, they were not selected. So that is why I am coming to thank you, because my knowledge base, because of edX MOOCs courses, was so good that I was selected. So same is the situation now for all of you, especially those who entered the education. It doesn't matter which university you take admission to. It doesn't matter what your teachers are teaching you. If you have that fire in you, if you have that passion in you, you can learn from anything, anywhere. Because right now the open education resource means the resource which is lying free of cost on the internet is in plenty. In plenty means crores and crores of resources are there. So if you got admission in Royal Global and you were wanting to take admission in some IIT, don't get disheartened, because the IIT professor will come to your home at your convenient time and teach you. Even if you are studying in Royal Global University, how? Through the NPTEL platform. There is an NPTEL platform in which whole of the bachelor's program in every discipline, all the IIT professors, the way they teach it, their classes, that is there. If you really want to learn, IIT professor will come to your home on your laptop and teach you. If you want to hear the foreign lecture of a professor who is very good in particular subject, don't worry. He will come to your home and teach you at your laptop, at your convenient time. So right now, the resources are so much. So this is another type of freedom with you, that you don't have to depend on a particular university, on a particular class, on a particular teacher, on a particular book. The world is the limit, sky is the limit. You have so much of resources available that the only thing you need is passion, hard work, motivation. If you really learn all that, then just like that edX boy who was touching the feet of the CEO of edX, you will be touching the feet of some online education resource person, that because of you, I learned so much, I understood so much, that in future, obviously the knowledge base is going to be this. Degrees will be only framed and put on the walls. Degrees will be of no use. What will be of use will be the knowledge base you have. So knowledge you have to increase. And then along with the knowledge, it is the holistic development. When I say holistic development, suppose you have a lot of knowledge, but you don't have communication skills. Then what will you do with this knowledge if you cannot even communicate that I have that knowledge? If you have a lot of knowledge, if you don't have technical skills, right now the person who is computer illiterate is almost considered as an illiterate because he's not able to make use of resources. So it is in your interest to make use of many things, and then you have to recognize, what is your core competency? Okay, now let me tell you a story. Students like stories, and I also love stories. This is the story of hare and tortoise, not the way you have heard, but the way I'll telling you it in a different way. Hare and tortoise. You must have heard in the school that there was a race between hare and tortoise, and hare sleeps on the way, and tortoise consistently moves forward, and then he wins. And the moral of the story is slow and steady wins the race. But the story doesn't end here. What happens after that is, this hare thinks, means this rabbit, he thinks, what is this? I'm so fast and I could be defeated by this tortoise. I should be doing something. So he tells tortoise, let us again run the race. So they both run the race again. So this time hare does not sleep. He finishes it within seconds only because he's so fast a runner. And tortoise is defeated. So the moral of the story changes to fast and consistent. If you are fast and consistent wins a race. So it doesn't mean that you should be slow and steady, but if you are fast, you have consistency is very important. Perseverance is very important. If you really want to achieve your goal, you have to be very fast. But the story doesn't end here. What happens after this is, tortoise says, what is this? The first time I won the race, this time he has won the race. And if he's a fast runner, that doesn't mean that he should be winning the race always. So he thinks, tortoise is considered to be very wise. So he thinks, and he again invites hare for a race. And this time he changes the course of the race, route of the race. He says, whosoever touches that particular tree first, that will be the winner. So hare thinks that this tortoise is thinking that I'll again sleep, so I will not sleep, and I will show him the third time also I can win the race. So this time when they start the race, and the tree which is to be touched, that is beyond a river. So the hare runs very fast. He comes to the bank of the river, and there he is standing. He doesn't know how to swim. So tortoise comes there slowly. He reaches the bank, goes to the river, swims, goes to the other side, touches the tree, and he wins. So what is this? How did that happen? Because the tortoise knew that his core competency is not running. His core competency is something else. He knows swimming, which hare does not know. So in your studies also, in your life also, you should sort of recognize your core competency and then decide the level playing field according to the core competency. Some children will be very good in writing, some will be very good in speaking, some will be very good in some other form. There are different children who are good in different forms. So if you are very good in writing, please keep on writing something, show your good assignments to the teachers, write very well. If you are very good in speaking, participate in many events, do something. If you are very good in research analysis, do some research. But first you have to identify what your core competency is. Many times when I ask in a class, what do you think is your core competency? The children don't even know what is their core competency. Not only children, even teachers do not know what is their core competency. If I ask a teacher, what do you think you are best at? Are you best in speaking or writing or analyzing or drafting or negotiating, or what are you good at? So they put their thinking caps on. What are we good at? They don't know what are we good at. So you have to identify what is your core competency, because when you decide the level playing field as per your core competency, obviously the chances of success will be much higher. So decide your core competency, identify your core competency, decide the level playing field according to your core competency, and you will really be the winner in life. But the story still doesn't end. The story which I was talking, it still doesn't end. By now, once he wins, then the other wins, then the first wins. So by now they became friends. And after they became friends, they again decide to run the race, but now as a team. So when they decide to run as a team, in the land portion, tortoise sits on the back of the rabbit, and in the river portion, the tortoise is there and the rabbit sits on the back of the tortoise, and they finish the race in the record time and the minimum time. They are competing with the self. So again, what is the moral of the story? That you have to compete with others, of course, but you have to also compete with the self. And then teamwork is very, very important. So unless you invest yourself, the way you work, it should be teamwork. You cannot be pulling the legs of all your students all the time, then trying to compete or cutthroat competition, which is called nowadays. So there's no need of that cutthroat competition. Work as a team, because when you go for the companies, when you go to for the job market, they see, this is seen that do you have the capacity to work as a team? So that teamwork is very, very important. So teamwork, moral of the story is, slow and steady wins the race has gone now. The moral of the story is fast and consistent runs the race, wins the race. Second is identify your core competencies and then decide the level playing field. Third is that teamwork is very, very important. You should compete with yourself. So if you compete with yourself, you will be winning the race in a much, much lesser amount of time. Professor Aspi Singh, I think I'll keep on going on and on. I want to know the time till which I can continue.
I think, ma'am, you can have another 2-3 minutes, ma'am.
2-3 minutes, okay.
Yes.
Because I love stories, so I keep on telling one story after the other.
Because
so
we have
I sometimes forget the time also.
We have some questions also from the students, ma'am. So
sure.
Take another 2-3 minutes.
So this is what I want. My message is that please identify your core competencies and don't stop thinking. What happens is, as a student, you have recently come from the school or maybe from college to the PG level. As we grow up, we stop asking questions. And as a child, we were asking so many questions. So in the new policy, it is said that the teaching will not be done in a manner in which the rote learning is promoted. That is, you memorize and then produce. No, there will be open book examinations. You have to learn. It has to be the thinking has to be there, that how you are applying the subject, problem solving techniques, creativity, curiosity, application, critical thinking, all this will be very, very important. Therefore, the way the subjects are taught, the flipped classroom model will be adopted so that the students are able to understand better. You have to read at home and then come so that the understanding is better. So in this particular policy, a lot of emphasis has been given to curiosity. Think, socho. Every day you are eating roti paranta, one side is thick, one side is thin. Why? When you are going to hill stations, you are going near the sun, still it is getting colder. Why? If when you are doing blood transfusion, especially in COVID, you keep on saying A group, B group, O group. But this mosquito, he keeps on biting A group, B group, O group. Nothing happens to him. Why? If your mother goes out for sort of putting the clothes for drying, the clothes dry, but the mother gets wet because of the sweat. Why does this happen? Why doesn't sweat dry the sweat also? The sun should be drying the sweat also. So every day we are having so many questions around us are there, but we never think of that. Right now, if we are sitting at, say, 25 degrees centigrade in the AC, it is comfortable for us, but the body temperature is 37. So we should be comfortable at 37. Why we are comfortable at 25? So like this, if you keep on seeing what is happening outside, you will see there are so many questions, but we don't even ask these questions. So put your thinking caps on, keep on thinking, don't let your curiosity die. Ask as many questions as you want to ask your teachers. Rather, make their life difficult by asking more and more questions. Maybe teachers are not able to answer on the same day. Maybe next day they will answer, but they will definitely answer. But please ask many questions. Please go to many, many sources. Keep on increasing your knowledge. You have right now the best opportunity to learn as much as you want to do, but just have that passion to learn. And if that passion is there, you will really come out as something as victorious, and you will really be the kings, which I'm saying the students are the kings. So with this, I'll say all the best to all the students. My time is up. So thanks a lot, Professor Aspi Singh, for inviting me, and all the best to all the students. And if there are any questions, I'm really here to answer them.
Ma'am, indeed, it has been a pleasure to listen to you, and I hope our students must have benefited from what you have been talking about. It was very interesting because you have brought in new concepts of multidimensional the education system being more flexible to the needs of the students, the idea of the credit bank. These are very interesting concepts. Ma'am, we have just several questions, but we cannot take each and every one, but there are some interesting questions. One student wants to know, this policy looks very wonderful in paper, but do we really have the infrastructure to implement it? What do you have to say, ma'am?
See, of course, when the policy was made, the policy makers knew that a lot of money will be required for implementing the policy. And money, basically, most money will be required in creating the infrastructure. But again, I would say that a lot of money till now was spent on brick and mortar university in creating huge buildings. So now COVID has taught us, and the policy is taking sort of a leap from there, that we do not need many brick and mortar structures. Maybe the technology has to be upgraded. We need more devices. We need more internet facility. We need a better bandwidth. So if that is provided, that can compensate a lot of brick and mortar buildings. Right now, you have seen that for last 6 months, all the buildings were lying vacant. They were not at all used. What was being used was the technology. And the future is also blended learning. Blended learning means a mix of face-to-face and online learning. So I think in future, a lot of investment will be made on technology, and government is committed to spend that much. I don't think there will be a lot of issues with regard to infrastructure.
Thank you, ma'am. In fact, we have been flooded with questions which are very common, and many of them want to know whether this policy is applicable for the students who have joined at present. Many are asking that they're thrilled to know about this policy, and will they fall under this policy, ma'am?
See, policy is applicable from the date it was issued, and for implementation, for different recommendations. For example, policy says that affiliation system should be abolished and all the colleges should become degree awarding colleges. That cannot happen overnight. So a timeline of 15 years has been given for this. So the policy understands that which recommendation takes how much time for implementation, and accordingly the times have been distributed in the policy. So I don't think that will be a very big, major issue.
Thank you, ma'am. Indeed, I must say this has been a very wonderful session where you have really enriched our students with your knowledge on the new education policy, which is going to shape the future of India, the young generation who is going to benefit out of it. Ma'am, indeed, it was a pleasure to have you amongst us in Royal Global University. Professor Singh, sir, would you like to say something at the end?
No, thank you so much, Madam Mittal. But I just want to add on, fortunately, our student in Royal Global University from the day one, we launched the university in 2017. And we started with the CBCS and also the basket courses. So the student of engineering is also learning Kathak and music and vice versa. So this is going on from the day one, and that has become, and that basically because UGC has given us the mandate for CBCS, and we creatively have actually implemented that, and we religiously have done that. So this part, the students who have taken admission this year will also be exposed to that kind of system. Also, we have, AICT has said once upon a time, and UGC also, that the student last 2-3 years are doing many courses online. And the online courses being done on MOOCs, they are being incorporated in their manuscripts also. So what we have done, that the credit you are earning, we also have recognized those credits being earned on the online courses, and we have listed those programs in their manuscripts, and many students have done that. Also, the flexibility that if you want to do a normal course, you have to do, suppose in engineering, 160 credits. If you want to do honors, you can do 180 credits, and these 20 credits you can earn by doing program on the open learning platform. So this all is there in the university. So students, I can say from Royal Global University side, that many things which Dr. Mittal has actually deliberated, which is going to take more time to be implemented from the NE policy side, that probably is not your domain, but many things which has been said. And ABC also, if you start doing the courses from today and next year you do more, I mean, I think you are free to do from any of the universities which may offer, and from the open source which is already available. So I think many things you can do, and we are very positive. And Dr. Mittal, I would say that ABC concept was also not very clear to me. I'm very happy to note that I have noted down everything. And from my next deliberation, I will speak more clearly on this aspect also. And as a part of task team of implementation of national education policy in Assam, fortunately, they have given me this responsibility also with the part of team. I would love to take this forward for the implementation side. So my side, thank you so much. Dheeraj, I think students, we are going to interact in other time in the afternoon. I will be interacting with them. So you can ask more questions from me there. Thank you so much, Dr. Vipul. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Students, may I request you to please be online as we are immediately starting off with the next session. Thank you, sir.
Next session is Dr. Rai from Director